Have you ever wondered why the most ruthless, cunning, and even cruel people seem to rise while the honest and hard-working are left invisible? The world doesn't reward goodness, it rewards power. And power belongs to those who dare to understand the shadows of the human mind. Behind every betrayal, every manipulation, every downfall of the too nice, there's a hidden psychology at work. What if I told you that the same dark principles used by kings, rulers, and manipulators for centuries can make you untouchable today? This is not kindness, not fairness. This is survival. Think back to the last time you felt ignored, underestimated, or disrespected. You played fair, yet you lost. You stayed loyal, yet you were betrayed. That wasn't an accident. It was the game. And those who understood the rules of that game won, while you paid the price. Niccolo Machiavelli didn't just write about politics. He exposed the raw truths of human behavior, the laws that explain why weakness is exploited and why influence bends reality. In this video, you will uncover 8 Machiavellian secrets of dark psychology, principles designed to strip away your naivety and reforge you into someone who cannot be manipulated, someone untouchable. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to Curiosity to Wisdom, where we bring you the hidden knowledge of power, psychology, and influence that others won't dare to reveal. Drop a comment saying, "I refuse to be naive," and let's see who's ready to step into the darker truths of the human mind. Now, let's begin. The first principle you must swallow is this: fairness is a beautiful illusion designed to control the powerless. From childhood, we are taught to play nice, to share, to be fair. But the harsh reality is that the world is not fair. It is strategic. Those who cling to fairness as a guiding rule are left vulnerable to those who exploit it. Look at history. Empires weren't built on fairness. They were built on dominance and strategy. When you insist on fairness in a world that thrives on advantage, you become predictable, and predictability is weakness. Think about it. When someone wrongs you, do they stop because it's unfair? No. They stop only when the cost of crossing you outweighs the benefit. The psychology of fairness is a trap, engineered to tame you into compliance. If you want power, you must discard the illusion that fairness exists in human interaction. Instead, measure every exchange by value, by consequence, by outcome, not sentiment. The Machiavellian mind doesn't ask, "Is this fair?" It asks, "Does this strengthen me, or does it weaken me?" Until you abandon this illusion, you will always be prey to those who don't. Ruthlessness is often misunderstood. People imagine rage, cruelty, or blind aggression. But Machiavellian ruthlessness is something colder, sharper. It is the discipline to act without being enslaved by emotion. To be ruthless is to refuse to let guilt, hesitation, or fear dictate your moves. Think of it as surgical precision, cutting where you must, without trembling. Machiavelli wrote that injuries must be inflicted all at once, meaning decisive action is stronger than drawn-out weakness. In modern terms, this means controlling your emotions so completely that you become unreadable. The ruthless don't explode, they calculate. They don't beg for forgiveness, they choose outcomes. Emotional discipline is your shield against manipulation. When others can't predict whether you'll bend or break, you hold the advantage. Ask yourself, how many times have you lost influence because you reacted too quickly, too emotionally? Ruthlessness is not cruelty. It is sovereignty over yourself. It is the refusal to bleed for those who wouldn't bleed for you. When you master this, you step into a realm where others can no longer provoke, control, or weaken you. Here is a bitter truth that cuts deeper than most are willing to admit. Being liked will never shield you, never protect you, never guarantee your survival. What people crave in secret is not your charm, but your strength. The world has been deceived into worshipping likability, as though winning approval is the ultimate measure of success. Yet likability is as fragile as glass. It shatters the very moment you assert yourself, the moment you dare to say no, the moment you choose your principles over their comfort. This is why so many live as cowards, smiling to their own detriment, terrified of disapproval, enslaved by the opinions of others. They think being agreeable makes them safe, but all it makes them is disposable. For what is easily liked is easily replaced. Dominance, however, endures. Respect does not emerge from soft words or from bending to the will of others. It is born from presence, from boundaries, from the subtle but undeniable weight of consequences. People do not follow the agreeable. People follow the immovable. The employee who is always pleasant and eager to please is rarely promoted, while the one who sets expectations and commands results is elevated. In relationships, the endlessly agreeable partner is taken for granted, while the one who demands respect inspires loyalty. Dominance is not violence, nor is it loud aggression. It is posture. It is the calm, steady signal that says, "I cannot be bent. I will not be moved." Psychology confirms a cruel truth. People always test limits. They push until they feel resistance. If your identity is built on likability, you will always yield, always bend, always shrink a little smaller in order to be accepted, and every time you do, you teach others that you can be manipulated. But if your identity is built on dominance, quiet, unshakable dominance, others adjust to you. They orbit you, even if they resent you. Woo. They comply, even if they dislike you. Respect compels behavior in a way likability never can. The lesson is simple but merciless. Stop apologizing for existing. Stop surrendering your power to win smiles. Stop shrinking in order to belong. Power begins the moment you choose respect over likability, when even your silence carries weight and your presence demands acknowledgement, even from those who despise you. The weak reveal themselves not through silence, but through noise. They rattle with endless threats, hollow warnings, and exaggerated promises of action they never intend to take. Their energy is spent in words, not in deeds, and so the world quickly learns that their bark has no bite. Such individuals confuse noise with authority, but the truth is merciless. Every empty threat strips them of credibility. Authority is not built on what you claim you will do. It is built on the actions you take and the consequences you enforce. The strong understand this instinctively. They act with precision, decisively, and when they do, their authority is carved into memory. A single decisive act has more weight than 1,000 empty words. In human psychology, there is an immutable law. Tolerance of disrespect invites repetition. If someone disrespects you once and you allow it to pass unchecked, you have taught them that your boundaries are negotiable. You have silently given them permission to do it again. And they will. People are creatures of habit. They test patterns. They probe for weakness. The only way to reprogram behavior is to disrupt the pattern with decisive consequence. This does not require cruelty, nor does it demand violence. It demands precision. When someone crosses a line, the correction must be sharp, undeniable, and final. Whether it is through direct confrontation, removing access, or withdrawing privileges, the impact must be clear enough that the offender understands instantly. This boundary cannot be crossed again. But here lies the danger. Half measures are worse than inaction. An indecisive attempt to enforce authority reveals hesitation. It tells others that your boundaries are flexible, that your words are negotiable, that your threats are theater. This only invites more testing, more pushing, more erosion of your authority. True power lies in saying li, acting rarely, but acting in such a way that your action echoes long after. A decisive strike does not need to be repeated often. It establishes a reputation, and reputation is a fortress. When people know that your silence is not weakness, but restraint, that when you do act, it is final and absolute, they think twice before testing you. The principle is simple but unforgiving. Say less, act more. When you act, act in a way that leaves no doubt. Let your decisive moments define you, and you will find that you need fewer of them. Power does not truly exist in what is real. It exists in what is perceived. The world is ruled not by objective truth, but by collective belief. You can be strong, capable, intelligent, and worthy. But if others fail to perceive it, that strength remains invisible, unused, and wasted. This is the ruthless essence of power. Reality is irrelevant if the perception contradicts it. People rarely care about what is hidden. They respond to the image that stands before them. This is why appearances are not trivial decorations. They are instruments of control. To master influence, you must craft how you are seen, because people judge instantly, and their judgment determines how they treat you. The skilled strategist understands this and uses it with precision. In moments of weakness, they project calm. In moments of chaos, they appear unmoved. In situations where doubt could destroy them, they radiate certainty. This is not hypocrisy, it is survival. Humans are visual, emotional creatures. They respond far more to what they see and feel than to what is factual. A steady gaze, a controlled tone, a posture of command, all these outweigh explanations or justifications. People remember how you appeared, not what you said. Think carefully. When you walk into a room, before you utter a single word, a verdict is already forming. The tilt of your head, the firmness of your step, the confidence in your silence, these craft the perception that either elevates or diminishes you. Appear dominant, and others yield instinctively. Appear uncertain, and they sense blood in the water. Even predators in nature follow this law. They strike the weak because weakness reveals itself long before the battle begins. The same psychology governs human interaction. It is not enough to possess strength. You must be seen as strong. It is not enough to have control. You must project control. Presence, therefore, must never be casual. It must always be deliberate. Every gesture, every word, every silence must align with the image you want etched into the minds of others. When you command perception, you command response. Now pause for a moment. If this truth cuts through the illusions you've been living under, then act. Subscribe to Curiosity to Wisdom and comment below. Perception is power. Because this knowledge alone changes nothing unless you choose to embody it, to project it, to live it. If perception governs the surface, narrative governs the depths beneath it. Human beings are not creatures of pure logic. We are creatures of story. Every belief, every judgment, every decision we make is shaped less by raw fact and more by the narrative wrapped around it. This is the hidden battlefield of power, not the action itself, but the story told about that action. The act can be identical, but the meaning completely opposite. A calculated move can be painted as betrayal and destroy your reputation, or reframed as loyalty and immortalize you as honorable. The action is neutral, the story defines it. This is why the skilled strategist never leaves narrative to chance. To act without controlling the story is to hand your enemies a weapon. If you cut off a toxic ally, others might whisper that you are cold, ruthless, ungrateful. But if you seize control of the narrative, you do not allow coldness to define you. You reframe it as strength, as refusal to tolerate disloyalty, as a commitment to higher standards. If you withdraw from draining relationships, others may call you selfish. But if you shape the story, it becomes self-respect, discipline, focus. The difference is not in what you did, but in the story that circulates about what you did. This principle governs the most powerful figures in history. Politicians survive scandals not because they are innocent, but because they rewrite the narrative faster than their opponents can. Leaders turn failures into necessary sacrifices. Manipulators justify cruelty as tough love. They know that judgment never arises from the raw facts. It arises from the frame in which those facts are delivered. Whoever defines the frame defines the outcome. Whoever shapes the story shapes the verdict. The weak overlook this truth. They act and hope their deeds will be understood as they are, but nothing is ever seen as it truly is. Everything is interpreted, and in that interpretation lies either ruin or dominance. The strong embed every action in narrative armor. Their stories make them untouchable. Their moves are remembered not as accidents, but as inevitabilities. Never forget, actions are vulnerable. Narratives are eternal. Control the story, and you control not just how the world sees you, but how the world justifies your power. Power cannot exist in chaos. It may flare for a moment, but without structure it inevitably collapses. Authority is not sustained by force of will alone. It is sustained by systems, by predictability, by rules that outlive moods. Consider the ruler who punishes arbitrarily, sometimes harshly, sometimes leniently, depending on whim. Such a ruler is not feared but resented, for no one knows where the boundaries truly lie. On the other hand, consider the leader who forgives endlessly, granting chance after chance with no consequences attached. They believe this makes them merciful, but in reality, it makes them a target for exploitation. When behavior has no cost, people repeat it freely. Structure is the spine of power, and without it, authority bends until it breaks. To hold true strength, you must build systems of consequence, mechanisms that function automatically without argument or hesitation. If someone betrays your trust, the outcome must not be debated, delayed, or softened. It must unfold as naturally as a law of physics. If someone wastes your time, the penalty must be woven into the structure of how you interact with them, perhaps by reducing access, withholding opportunities, or setting firmer boundaries. This is not cruelty, nor vindictiveness. It is clarity. People do not learn from emotional outbursts. They learn from consistent cause and effect. Think of the workplace. The leader who shouts one day, ignores insubordination the next, and then punishes unpredictably is soon disrespected. Their authority is fragile because no one takes their standards seriously. Contrast this with the leader who enforces rules systematically, without exception and without malice. Over time, that leader commands order, not because of constant effort, but because the system itself regulates behavior. This principle extends beyond leadership into every aspect of life. Your person. Null boundaries should not feel like preferences. They should feel like gravity, impersonal, undeniable, constant. When people know, without doubt, the cost of disrespect, they calculate differently before testing you. The brilliance of structure is that it removes the need for rage, begging, or endless confrontation. The system enforces itself. This is power in its purest form, not noise, not fury, but inevitability. A presence so steady, so consistent, that it conditions behavior without you lifting a finger. True authority does not argue, it simply operates. The loudest voice in the room is almost always the weakest. Those who shout, over-explain, and constantly announce their importance betray an inner fragility, as if they must convince the world of a strength they themselves doubt. True power requires no such performance. It does not scream. It radiates. It lingers in silence, in presence, in the subtle weight of someone who knows they cannot be ignored. This is the essence of silent dominance, the ability to command attention, respect, and compliance without uttering a single unnecessary word. Think of the predator in nature. The lion does not roar to prove its authority every moment. Its presence alone signals danger. The fox does not boast of its cunning. Its quiet calculation ensures survival. Strength and cunning, when fused with restraint, create an aura far more intimidating than noise ever could. Human psychology responds to this same principle. A still presence unsettles people because silence is a mirror. It forces them to face themselves, to reveal their nerves, their insecurities, their weaknesses. Those who cannot bear silence rush to fill it, spilling truths they would never have spoken otherwise. In this way, silence becomes interrogation without questions, dominance without aggression. The truly untouchable understand this deeply. They rarely explain themselves because explanation is submission to judgment. They rarely justify because justification invites doubt. They rarely defend because defense signals insecurity. Instead, they let silence carry the message. That silence speaks louder than any argument. I do not owe you answers. I am beyond your reach. This restraint terrifies because others cannot manipulate what they cannot provoke. In conversation, silent dominance makes others reveal themselves, rushing to overcompensate for the quiet weight pressing against them. In conflict, it forces hesitation, planting seeds of doubt before a blow is ever struck. In daily life, it creates an aura of self-possession so impenetrable that gossip, insult, or attack bounces off like stones against a fortress wall. Silence, then, is not emptiness. It is presence distilled into its sharpest form. Learn this, and you discover a weapon more refined than words, more enduring than force. Stillness itself becomes a blade cutting deeper than noise ever could. Here lies the ultimate transformation, the point where strategy, restraint, and psychological mastery converge into something unshakable, becoming untouchable. Real power is not found in endlessly manipulating others, nor in playing the exhausting game of control. It is found in transcending that game altogether, in becoming the one who cannot be manipulated. This is the final stage of dominance, not to rule others, but to rule oneself so completely that no external force can disturb the core. When rejection ceases to wound you, when betrayal no longer dismantles your spirit, when fear no longer dictates the paths you walk, you rise into a rare state. You ascend beyond control, beyond reach. Most people live enslaved by invisible chains. They crave approval and shrink when it is denied. They cling to loyalty and collapse when it is broken. They tremble at uncertainty, chasing safety at the cost of their freedom. But when you refuse to participate in these traps, when you stop hinging your existence on the fragile morality of others, you cut every chain. You cease to chase trust because your strength is not borrowed from another's word. You cease to beg for acceptance because your worth is not determined by shifting opinions. You become steady, immovable, like stone, while those around you crack, shatter, and crumble under the same pressures that no longer move you. The sovereign individual is ungovernable, immune to guilt, flattery, and intimidation alike. To guilt, you remain untouched, for you need no external absolution. To flattery, you remain unmoved, for you cannot be bought by hollow praise. To intimidation, you remain firm, for nothing can corner a man who does not rush, who does not beg, who does not fear loss. This is not coldness, it is clarity. Stillness here is not weakness, it is command. The final law of power is merciless in its simplicity. The one who he does not chase cannot be manipulated. The one who does not beg cannot be denied. The one who does not rush cannot be cornered. When you embody this truth, the world bends toward you because you no longer bend toward it. You become the axis around which everything else turns, the untouchable. Now the choice is yours. You can remain in the comfort of naivety, believing that fairness, likability, and good intentions will shield you. Or you can awaken to reality. That power belongs to those who understand psychology, strategy, and influence. The naive will always be prey. The strategist becomes untouchable. Which will you be? Declare it in the comments. I choose power. Subscribe to Curiosity to Wisdom if you refuse to be controlled, if you're ready to step into a higher plane of influence where weakness is no longer an option. This is not a lesson, it is a transformation. The game of power is being played all around you. The question is no longer whether you want to play. The question is whether you will win.